Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be going over the possibility of Vice President Kamala Harris's best case scenario in the 2024 presidential election against Donald Trump. So basically, what's the most amount of electoral votes she can get at the very, what's her ceiling at, basically. But before we get started with the map, make sure you guys are subscribed, click the bell so you don't miss out on my content, press the like button, give this video a thumbs up. Also, we have memberships. You can find a link to that in the description section if you are interested. Now back to the topic of today's video. I'm going to be filling out the electoral map for every single battleground and swing state for, the possibility of a scenario and Kamala Harris getting her best case, which would be basically the worst case for Donald Trump, or the other side, which is the Republican Party. So to start off this video, I do think that there will be one likely state that will now be moving into the solid blue column, and that is Colorado. I do think this state is actually shifting towards left. Democrats keep gaining in terms of new voters. Even though the state's pretty much a swing state, it's actually getting kind of comfortable with blue, as if right now I do expect Kamala Harris to win it by over 10 percentage points, so she will be able to get double digits. I also do think that the state of New Mexico would be considered likely comfortable for Kamala Harris. She would win this state by a margin of somewhere in between 7 to 10 percentage points. I just think Albuquerque is a very, good Democratic stronghold, and it's hard for Trump to overcome the votes. And there, I also do think that the state of Virginia would go to Kamala Harris by a likely margin of probably 7 points if I had to make, an estimated guess. And whatever happened with January 6th, obviously it was in DC and Maryland. You can argue that in between those two states. So maybe that can be an affection going into Kamala Harris's favor. Maybe she can do better in the suburbs here, especially with women as well. I do think Minnesota is going to be likely for Kamala Harris. The suburbs here and also Minneapolis is really trending towards the left. This state's actually getting bluer. I think Minnesota is basically too far to the left, too gone for Donald Trump. It's basically a lost cause for him, especially in Kamala Harris's best case scenario. But as for the likely states for Donald Trump, I do think Texas is going to be likely. I just don't see how Kamala Harris can be competitive at all in a state like Texas. Keep in mind, this is a border state. Immigration is probably the number one priority issue to a lot of these voters, and obviously the border crisis. I don't understand how Kamala Harris can address the issue of immigration as well as Trump can when it comes to some of these Texas voters. I also think Trump can make gains among Hispanic voters as well, Cuban Americans specifically in the state of Florida. Ron DeSantis flipped Miami-Dade County from blue to red in the 2022 midterms. He got nearly 20 points, and someone who is less popular than him, Marco Rubio, even got double digits. So why not Trump? So I do think Trump would also comfortably win the state of Florida as well. And now also Iowa and Ohio is not going to be competitive. It's not going to be close no matter who the Democratic nominee is, even Kamala Harris. Both of these states have gone too far to the right. A poll showed Trump up by 18 in the state of Iowa, and it was a highly rated pollster as well. And also Trump picked J.D. Vance as his VP, which his home state is in the state of Ohio. So that alone can really, I think that would boost turnout and it really impact this race in favor of Donald Trump, because obviously the vice president's home state is Ohio, so I don't expect how that can be competitive at all, even in a Kamala Harris best case scenario. And I also do think that the state of New Hampshire is going to be likely for the vice president Kamala Harris. I just think there's a lot of obviously college educated voters, which I think she can perform good with them, possibly, especially in her best case scenario. I think that voting block really, goes to the Democrats' benefit. And now moving on to the lean states, I do think that both Michigan and Pennsylvania would be lean for Vice President Kamala Harris. Let's start off with Pennsylvania. I think in her best case, she would pick Josh Shapiro, who is the governor of Pennsylvania, as her vice president. I think that would be the strongest ticket on the Democratic side. I think Josh Shapiro is so strong. He gives so many opportunities to someone like Kamala Harris. She can expand the map, especially in the Rust Belt where she needs help the most, because in my opinion, her alone is not going to perform that strong in the Rust Belt. I think Kamala Harris is better in some of these Sun Belt states, especially Georgia as well. but not in the Rust Belt. When it comes to those white voters, the working class, obviously the union workers, those blue collar workers, college educated voters, Kamala Harris doesn't do that well with them. So picking someone like Josh Shapiro, who won very strongly in this state back in the 2022 midterms, who destroyed, I would say, Doug Mastriano, I think that, the VP, just like in JD Vance from Ohio, really gives Kamala Harris that electoral map advantage. And so I think Josh Shapiro can possibly carry Kamala Harris if he were to be obviously on the ticket with her as her vice presidential selection, especially in places like Erie County, Centre County, Northampton, where it really matters the most. I think Josh Shapiro can help her run up the numbers in some of these stronghold Democratic counties like Philadelphia and the Pittsburgh suburbs. The suburbs are very, the most important thing that can also be decide who wins this election at the end of the day. And I don't think there's going to be any lean states for Donald Trump. So now we're just going to move on to the tilt ones. I do think that he will narrowly pull off a victory in the state of Wisconsin by a tilt margin by under a percentage point, as well as the state of North Carolina by probably around 1 point. Now, North Carolina, believe it or not, is actually getting better. But I do think that Kamala Harris would perform slightly better in North Carolina than Biden would. Obviously, Biden is so unpopular, so maybe Kamala Harris can do better with African-American voters, especially in a state like Georgia as well, which, by the way, she's like half Indian, so I don't really know if that really helps with African-American voters, just saying. But when it comes to a state like Wisconsin, I just don't get how Kamala Harris can do well in the Rust Belt. I think she would do better in the Sun Belt, not the Rust Belt. That's just my opinion. Therefore, I think Trump wins Wisconsin, regardless if it is her best case or not. I think he can really run up the numbers in Green Bay, and I think Kamala Harris's turnout, I expect it to significantly drop, decrease, or lower in Milwaukee, which was really carried Biden just 4 years ago. Also, Trump needs to flip Door County, which I think he's on track to do just exactly that. And by the way, Biden's margin was only 20,000 votes, a margin of 0.6%, which is less than Trump's victory in this state in 2016. So imagine Kamala Harris, which in my opinion is much more unpopular than someone like Joe Biden, although the polls say otherwise. The polls say that Kamala Harris does better than Joe Biden. I don't really know what to say about that. So that's just my opinion on the tilt states. Now moving on to Kamala Harris's tilt states before we end off this video. I do think that she will narrowly pull off the state in Georgia. I expect her to run up the numbers in the Atlanta metropolitan area, also the Atlanta suburbs. That would be key to her victory, and that's what really helped Biden in 2020. Also, I believe Taylor Swift is ready to endorse her, so maybe that can really help with the youth vote. I think Kamala Harris can do very well among younger voters as well as Gen Z, really boost turnout. And I think she would do good in a state like Georgia, especially, not so much in some of these Rust Belt states like Wisconsin, for example. I also do think that Kamala Harris could possibly win a state like Arizona by probably 1 to 2 percentage points in her absolute best case scenario. It will take a lot for her to win this state as well, because I don't think she's popular in Arizona at all. Obviously, she comes to a state like California, which, believe me, people in Arizona don't like Californians whatsoever. And so, with that being said, I think she can do good in Maricopa County if she is going to win this state. Also, this state's kind of getting bluer. They just elected a Democratic governor, Katie Hobbs, in 2022. The midterms for the first time since, I believe, 2009. They also have a Democratic senator. So basically, statewide, Arizona is completely controlled by Democrats, which goes to show you the shifts and the trends really show that Arizona is getting bluer in the future, especially as well. And I also think she may be able to barely pull off a victory in the state of Nevada. She would have to hold on to Washoe County, basically Biden's numbers in the state in 2020, just 4 years ago. Also, Kamala Harris would have to ensure that her turnout is basically in line with Biden's in Clark County back in the 2020 election. Because if Kamala Harris loses support in Clark County or the Vegas area, then Donald Trump could very well actually flip this state, which according to the polls he is. But in her best case, I'm just saying, maybe Kamala Harris can have more enthusiasm in Clark County or Vegas than, I would say, someone like Joe Biden, who's less enthusiastic. I think maybe because she's a woman can really drive turnout in that county as well. So there you guys go. In Kamala Harris's best case scenario, or I would say Donald Trump's worst case, she gets 293 electoral votes, and that's if she picks Josh Shapiro as her VP, which would be important in a state like Pennsylvania. To Donald Trump's 245 electoral votes, he will be defeated once again. So let me know your overall thoughts and opinions on the map in the comment section down below. What states you agree with or disagree with and why. And one last final reminder before I end off this video is to subscribe, click the bell so you don't miss out on my content. Press the like button, give this video a thumbs up, and we have memberships. If you are interested, you can find a link to that in the description section. That is pretty much it. Thank you everyone for watching.